Welcome along to another proper football video. Today we're going to be talking about the relegation race, who's going to stay in the Premier League. If you like this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button now, leave a comment, let me know what you think and share it with your friends as well. Now, let's get into the video. Brighton are the last club in this relegation dogfight. They are probably the safest so far on 33 points, but nothing is secure in the Premier League. They haven't scored enough goals this year despite playing really good football, and like we saw against Manchester United, they are a little bit weaker at the back this year than they were under Chris Hughton. So what happens if Brighton go down? Well, new manager Graham Potter has signed a long-term contract with them, so they will likely stick with him and try and build on what he has built this year. They will likely score more goals in the Championship than in the Premier League, and if they manage to keep the likes of Nathan Mope, then they have a real chance of coming back up straight away and building upon their squad, making them more ready to fight in the Premier League. Now to Watford, what happened to Watford this year? Well, they had a real lack of consistency until Nigel Pearson took over, and even still then, they're still leaking too many goals and not scoring enough. So that's been one of their key issues this year, and it was always going to be a monumental task for Nigel Pearson. He was taken over in a position that only 3 managers, including himself, had managed to bring a club out of. So what happens to Watford if they go down to the Championship this year? Well, the good thing for them is they don't have any real superstars in their team, except for maybe Ismail Assar, who is pretty good and might find a club, but other than that they may not have to offload any of their good players, so they may take the parachute payment, build upon this club and get in some key players that will help them fight for Championship promotion and then stay in the Premier League for another 4 or 5 years like they did before. Up next are Aston Villa. They are second bottom of the table and they haven't won a game since they returned to play. Before that, they had lost all 5 games as well. So they have a really tough task if they want to stay in the Premier League this year. They also have to play Liverpool, Man United, Everton and Arsenal all before the last game of the season, where they face West Ham. A battle to stay in the Premier League that will be. So what happens if Aston Villa go down? It's going to be difficult for them. They've spent a lot of money. Dean Smith's job is probably on the line, and John Terry, we could see him take a step up into first team management, and unfortunately for Aston Villa fans, Jack Grealish will probably get that move to a top 5 club. Now to West Ham, and despite their really good win against Chelsea, I do think they are going to struggle to stay up in the Premier League this year. They've been terrible since the start of the season, even worse since David Moyes took over in December. They have only won 4 games in all competitions since Moyes took over, so he has really failed to inspire these players on in this relegation dogfight. Now, in fairness to West Ham, they do have a fairly easy run in until the end of the season, and a bonus for them is that they play 3 of their relegation candidates before the end of the season, so they do have time to crawl back a few points and get to that all-important 40 points mark. So what happened West Ham this year? Well, they overspent on big players who are inconsistent, the likes of Sebastian Haller, who cost 36 million and only scored 7 goals from up front. What happens if West Ham go down? Well, they have experienced this in the past before, so they do have experience in the Championship. Will they stay with David Moyes? That is probably unlikely, since his one job was to keep them in the Premier League this year, although he is saying that he wants time to build a bit of a history with West Ham. So they are not one of these clubs that I expect to stay in the Championship or lower if they do go down this year. Up next are Bournemouth, and they lost 4-0 to Newcastle during the week, further adding to their troubles in this relegation dogfight. They still have to play Man United, Leicester, Man City and Spurs, all on their way to the final game of the season, where they face Everton, which is no easy task. What happened to Bournemouth this year? Well, it is a combination of both injuries and bad signings over the last couple of years. The likes of Jordan Ibe and Dominic Solanke have not hit the ground running as Eddie Howe would have hoped. What will happen to Bournemouth if they go down? Well, Eddie Howe is the longest serving Premier League manager at the minute, so it is unlikely that he's going to follow them down to the Championship again, but we never know. Plus, Bournemouth have also started the plans for a new stadium. So will that fall to the wayside if they are fighting in the Championship as opposed to the Premier League? That is probably likely. Will we see Bournemouth return to the Premier League straight away? That is probably unlikely as well, because they have spent so much money in the Premier League over the last couple of years that they may not be willing to spend it if they're not getting the same results. Now, dead last in the table are Norwich. They are essentially gone with 21 points. It could be one of the worst seasons in Premier League history. They are essentially gone. Daniel Farke will probably keep his job. What might happen is we might see them coming up again using that parachute money that the Premier League promises the clubs going down. So I wouldn't say this is the end of Daniel Farke or this Norwich side. Do you agree? Do you disagree with my rankings? Leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel, and if you're a fan of these clubs, let me know how it's going to feel if your club is relegated.